Hello, my name's Chris Smith, and I'd like to tell you my story. I'm a fifth-generation Arizona native. I was raised in a ranching rodeo family, and I grew up around cowboy storytellers. So I've been fascinated with storytelling ever since I was little. And I was just, fascinated with the impact and the influence you could have through story. I'm also married to an amazing woman who she's my hero. Without her and the belief in me, I would have never been doing what I'm doing now. I also have 5 kids who are my absolute best friends. My family means everything to me. And I feel so blessed to be at this point in my life where I have this amazing family and this incredible business where we're creating impact and being able to work with some of the most inspiring entrepreneurs in the world. But I want to rewind to a time a little over 7.5 years ago when I found myself truly at the lowest point in my life. I felt like a failure as a husband, as a father, as an entrepreneur. And I truly felt like I was in a brick room with no doors and no windows, and I was trapped. I couldn't see any possibility for me creating something incredible in the world. And this one day, I'm sitting on a couch. And on this couch with me, but not next to me, is my wife. And she's sitting a little bit away from me. And we're in a particular gentleman's office. And this particular gentleman is a marriage counselor. And at the time, my wife and I were separated. And we had 2 little boys at the time. And I truly, again, was just at this place where I just didn't have any hope for myself as an entrepreneur. Didn't feel like I was ever gonna make it. Was struggling, as a husband, as a father. And everything changed for me that day because of how this man showed up for me and because of his story that inspired me. And so when we sat down with this particular gentleman, he said, I want you to tell me your story. I want you to tell me how you and your wife fell in love. I want you to tell me how you've gotten to the place where you're at today. I want you to tell me about how, being an entrepreneur has been for you and what your dreams are for what you want to create in the world. And so I told this man my story and he listened. And he really heard me. And I felt like he really saw me and kind of what I was going through. And then he shared with me his story. And he talked about, the struggles he had had in his own life in building a business and the struggles he'd had in his own marriage. And I could just relate to him. And I felt like he really understood where I was coming from. And I was inspired, by this gentleman. And as simple as it sounds, I'll never forget, he looked at me after I was done sharing my story and after he was done sharing his, and he said, I just have to tell you that I believe in you. I believe that you and your wife could create something amazing together and have an amazing family. I believe that you could go out and create what you want in life as an entrepreneur and follow your dreams. And for the first time in a long time, just by him, sharing his story and listening to my story, and then telling me that he believed that I could go out and create what I wanted in my life, I had a little bit of hope for the first time in a long time. And what changed that day for me was really miraculous. Because I've always been fascinated with storytelling, but to me, up until that point, the only thing that story really represented was the story that we tell to try and influence others. And what I realized that day was that there's 2 other critical components of our story. There's the story that we write, and the story that we live, and the story that we tell. And what I realized is that I had actually been living and telling a story that I hadn't written. I had been living and telling a story that the world had written for me. I had been living and telling a story that I thought the world wanted me to hear, but it wasn't my authentic story. And so it was so powerful as I started to figuratively, flip through the pages of my life, and I recognized that the rest of the pages were blank. Like the future part of my story hadn't been written. And though I was acting as though nothing positive was going to happen in my life, I was acting as though that my past was going to continue writing the rest of my story. And so what I realized is that I'm the author of my story. But do I have the courage to pick up the pen? And so that day, because of this man's belief in me and because I was inspired by his story, I decided to pick up the pen. And by picking up the pen, I started to write a new story for my life. I wrote a story that I was going to be best friends with my wife, that I was going to be an amazing husband and a father, that I was going to be a really successful entrepreneur that made a big impact in the world and changed the lives of a lot of people. And what was so powerful and so profound is as I wrote that story and as I started to live it, it started to come true. And I got more and more confidence, and it changed everything in my life. We were able to create an amazing family, my wife and I. I was able to create, an amazing business. But what inspired me to start that business is because I picked up the pen, and because storytelling really, it changed my life, it saved my marriage, and it transformed everything about my business. I was inspired to go and help other people pick up the pen. And so I created the proprietary methodology that I'm most well known for, which is the campfire effect. And the Campfire Effect has been absolutely incredible. We've been able to work with entrepreneurs and organizations from all over the world and inspire them to pick up the pen and teach them how to create a more powerful story and how to go out and share that story in the world to make a bigger impact. And so that's, for me, what led me to this point where I'm at today of saying, like, the Campfire Effect is really just the beginning. And once someone has gotten really clear on that brand and their story, then I want to teach them through the process of viral influence. I want to teach them how to take that brand and how to take that story and really go out and create really powerful influence out in the world. And so I just feel so blessed to be where I'm at, and I feel so blessed to help other entrepreneurs pick up the pen. And with picking up that pen, write a new story for their life and their business. And then use that story to go out and create really powerful influence in the world, to impact the lives of other people. And probably the most fascinating and most inspiring thing about my business to me is that when I help an entrepreneur pick up the pen and write a new story for their life, and then they go out in the world and make a bigger impact, I feel like I'm part of that impact. I feel like I'm part of that influence that they're creating in the world. And I just want to say thank you for taking the time, to let me share my story with you. And I would just hope that all of you, after watching this video, feel inspired to pick up the pen and realize that you don't have to be defined by the story of your past. Like, at any point in time in your life, you can pick up the pen and you can write a new story for your life. And with that new story, you can go out and create really powerful influence and make the kind of impact you were put on this earth to make. Thank you.